Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight you are seeing huge crowds of people out here in Washington, D.C. Look at this, people flooding the National Mall to condemn anti-Semitism, support Israel, and to demand the release of the 200-plus people abducted by Hamas terrorists back on October 7th. President Biden himself answering a shouted question today, saying negotiators aren't any closer to getting a deal on the table, but he is getting a message directly to the people kidnapped, telling them, hang in there, we're coming. Listen.
I've been talking with the people involved every single day. I believe it's going to happen, but I don't want to get into detail.
He says he believes it's going to happen. It's coming as the White House is also saying in just the last couple hours that they have what they're calling information that Hamas uses hospitals in Gaza to store weapons and hold hostages, a claim that Hamas, Palestinian doctors, and health officials deny. Right now in Gaza, people trapped in the main hospital there are struggling to take care of those still alive, burying close to 200 dead bodies in a mass grave, a doctor there telling our team, with fighting continuing nearby. That doctor also says 36 premature babies there, babies like the ones you're seeing here, are out of incubators because there's just no power. They're now on manual respirators, but they're still alive. We should note we cannot say for sure when these pictures you're seeing were taken. Israel says it'll bring mobile incubators essentially to the hospital. NBC News cannot say whether or not that's actually going to happen or when. And in just the last 24 hours, the push to evacuate this hospital seems to have failed, with the UN saying all of northern Gaza has just one functioning hospital left. With the IDF saying late today it now has control of Hamas buildings in Gaza City. It's coming as sirens are now going off regularly in southern Israel, a new signal of what could be a set of new rocket attacks from Hamas and new questions about what comes next. Raf Sanchez is live for us on the ground following all of it in Tel Aviv. But I want to start with Marissa Para, who is at the March for Israel here in Washington. Just wrapping up here, Marissa, after the security levels for this rally were raised to the highest they can go. Tell me about what you saw and heard on the ground there as people are starting to make their way back home.
Hey, Hallie. Well, we'll start with the security levels. We understand that there's a couple of factors that go into determining what exactly level that is going to be. And you mentioned this was the highest. And they said that it's a matter of, a spokesperson for D.C. told us that it's a matter of crowd size. Estimated crowd size is a big factor, as well as high profile attendees. We know Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was here. We know that there were high profile Jewish American actresses, Israeli activists that were here speaking on stage, as well as families of the hostages. We'll get to that in just a moment. But crowd size is another factor here, because on the low end, they were expecting 40,000. On the high end, somewhere upwards of 250,000. The actual number is something that we'll, of course, be evaluating later. But there was federal police, there was local police. The roads were closed protectively. But I will say, Hallie, as of right now, we have not heard of any reports of any arrests or violent incidents that happened tonight.
A big part of this rally is to push for more to be done to try to get these hostages out. Our Lester Holt was down here in Washington today talking exclusively with 12 people whose family members are among those taken. Some say they do think the Biden administration is doing everything they can. Others do not think that. I want to play a little bit of this discussion with Lester here.
Talk is good. We want action. It's been 39 days. Where's the action? Where's the bottom line?
And I think what we're looking for is partnership. We feel the partnership of the U.S. government. We feel that support. We're looking for partnership from governments, from people all around the world. This was an act of widespread terrorism.
These are families who understandably want every bit of earth moved to get their loved ones home, right? But at this point, the talks internationally seem to be fairly stalled.
So, Hallie, I mean, we know that this is something that is a large part of the discussion right now here in the United States. Even here on the National Mall, we have seen several demonstrations over the last month, some of them calling for a ceasefire. Of course, today, there are three main points that were behind the March for Israel, this rally, this demonstration, calling for support for Israel and the government, calling for a stand against anti-Semitism, and calling for a release of the hostages. I'm going to get to the nuance behind that in just a moment, but I want to take you to what we heard from people that attended from all around the country earlier today.
It's a terrible tragedy, but we deserve the right to exist, and my children deserve the right to go to school without feeling scared.
That is the strength and the power of the collective, and that is what the Jewish communities have been doing for decades, and we are back today. And that is what we do.
So today we saw people holding posters of those still missing, wearing buttons and making sure that their faces, their names still remembered, Hallie. And I will just end on this one note. I know ceasefire has been a large part of discussion around the country, around the world. But for the most part, the majority of people I spoke to today said, regardless of where you stand on a ceasefire, all they're asking for is for the hostages to be a part of the equation when a ceasefire is being discussed, Hallie.
Marissa Parr, live for us there on the National Mall, not too far from where we are here in Washington. Marissa, thanks. You can catch more of Lester Holt's exclusive interview with those families of American hostages tonight on NBC Nightly News at 6:30 Eastern. I want to get now to our Raf Sanchez, who is live in Tel Aviv. So, Raf, coming into the day and what we have seen over the course of the last 10 hours here, not just in Washington but overseas, has been a series of headlines, right? Dueling headlines. First on the hostages, the potential for their release, how quickly things are moving to try to get them out. And second, on what we showed in the introduction to the segment here, those just little babies, those 36 premature babies, the most innocent victims of this war, who the world is watching. We've heard John Kirby now say the White House has information, as he calls it, that Hamas is using hospitals to store weapons, to store hostages. The IDF said the same thing 24 hours ago. Talk to us about what you're hearing, what we do know, and importantly, what we don't know at this point.
So just on this U.S. intelligence, Hallie, the White House is now saying America's intelligence agencies have their own information that Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad are hiding inside of Gaza hospitals. They are saying they're not relying on Israeli information. They have their own independent confirmation. What they are not saying is how they know it. Both the White House and the Pentagon asked repeatedly by reporters, where is the evidence to back up this claim? They wouldn't go into any detail. They were clear, Hallie, that even if Hamas, other militants are operating from inside these hospitals, even if they have tunnels underneath them, even if they have command centers below them, the United States does not want to see Israel bomb these hospitals or try to storm them. They said they're very, very clear that they do not want to put both those patients and those families sheltering in the hospital in the line of the crossfire. Hallie.
So then what is the plan to try to keep these people alive, to keep these babies alive?
Yeah, there is no more urgent case in Gaza right now than these 36 premature babies at Al-Shifa Hospital. They're out of their incubators because there's no electricity to power them. I spoke a little earlier to the head of surgery at that hospital. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
The situation is the same. No electricity, no fuel. Our babies are still surviving, and they are okay. We are still afraid that they are going to die if they...
So these 36 babies still alive, according to this doctor. They have been moved into the surgery ward where there is at least some ability to keep them warm. They are swaddling them in blankets. Staff are manually pumping their lungs to keep them breathing, which is normally what you would have the respirators, the incubators do. The hospital is saying they have received no firm offer from the Israeli military as to how to evacuate these babies. And if they're not evacuated, Hallie, it's really clear they're going to die in there. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, it is just horrific. Thank you so much for your reporting and for keeping us updated on those storylines. Appreciate it. We've got a lot more to get to here domestically in Washington, because over on Capitol Hill, you've got members getting ready to vote on a short-term deal any minute now that could keep the government open. This is a live look here at the House floor. So this is it, right? This is the action. Government's supposed to shut down end of the week. If they can get something tonight, something done now, basically, as we speak, chances are looking pretty good that we can not have a catastrophic shutdown and a whole lot of drama when that government funding deadline hits on November 17th. But just because more shutdown drama may be avoided, it doesn't mean there wasn't a whole lot of other drama anyway, because what is going on up on the Hill? You have Republican Congressman Tim Burchett says he took an elbow to the kidneys from none other than the former House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, the guy that Burchett just voted to remove from his position about a month ago. Burchett wasn't happy about it.
It was 100% on purpose, man. What are the chances? 435 members of Congress paid up us, voted against him. I'm the one who did it.
I did not run and hit the guy. I did not kidney punch him. I did not shoot anything like that.
You didn't shove him?
No.
McCarthy insisting he didn't kidney punch a fellow member of Congress. On the other side of the Hill, you have a Republican senator from Oklahoma and the president of the Teamsters Union threatening to throw down, just like straight up, go have a fight. Look at this.
You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
stop it.
Is that your solution every poll?
No, sit down.
Oh, you're a clown.
Sit down.
Look at you.
You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
That is not even everything, because in a different hearing, you had fewer people up out of their seats, but more name-calling between one of the top Republicans going after President Biden and his family's business dealings and a Democrat on the committee. Listen to this.
Reclaiming my time. No, I'm not going to give you your time back. We can stop the clock. You all continue to, you look like a Smurf here just going around and all this stuff. Now, listen.
Mr. Chairman, you have,
I'm gonna tell you something.
hold on. If we're not on time, we
spew disinformation.
Presumably the Smurf reference, referring to the blue suit that the congressman was wearing. So what's going on? Here's Republican Senator Josh Hallie telling us things seem, his words, not mine, a little tense, adding, maybe it's time for Thanksgiving. NBC's Ryan Nobles is live for us on Capitol Hill. Maybe these lawmakers do need a break. Are they going to get one if they vote to hold off a shutdown, basically, right? Give us your sense of where things are going tonight, because all this really does, even if it does pass, is kick the can once again to a series of deadlines early next year. So are you and I going to be sitting here, have the same conversation come January or February?
No, I think it's almost a guarantee, Hallie. The only problem that this vote today and the subsequent vote by the Senate will solve is that it will allow these lawmakers to have a peaceful Thanksgiving and perhaps a holiday season. But it's not going to solve any of the underlying problems that is leading to all this angst and tension here on Capitol Hill. For instance, just some of the things that it's not going to fix. Long-term funding for any sort of agriculture aid across the United States. None of the funding for military construction or veterans affairs. That's still not something being dealt with. Energy and water, transportation, housing, and urban development. That's everything that's going to be punted until the middle of January. So they'll fund it through that period of time, but the long-term funding for this is still an open question. On February 2nd, that's when we'll see commerce, justice, science, defense, financial services, homeland security. You see the list. That's when they'll have that battle. So, Hallie, if you can kind of look at it with an even more pessimistic view, not only are we going to be having this conversation in the middle of January, but we could be having it again in February, but with a whole different group of issues. So no problems being solved here, except everybody's going to get out of town and try and come back with clearer eyes.
Seems like they might need a break, because what is going on where you are? Like, why is everybody in such a cranky mood?
Yeah, I think it's just they're sick of each other. I mean, they've had 10 weeks of being here, dealing with these issues, long nights, late debates, dealing with very contentious issues on a lot of things. And so I think that's just part of it, that there's a general fatigue over everything they've been through here over the past few weeks, Hallie.
Can you explain to people why? Because I think normal people might go, wait a second, they worked for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That sounds like a vacation to the many weeks that most people explain that they don't usually work for that long of a stretch at one period.
Right. And, I have to say, in all fairness to our members of Congress, just because they're not here doesn't mean they're not working. When they return to their districts, they often have incredibly busy schedules. That's when they meet with their constituents. They hold town halls. That's when they get an understanding of what their constituents are looking for. In addition to that, they have to do all the business of fundraising and everything it takes to stay elected. So, it's the physically being here in Washington that is taxing, because the negotiating, the bickering, the back and forth, that takes a lot out of these members, and we're seeing it manifest itself in real time.
Quite clearly. Ryan Nobles, thank you. We're going to keep an eye, obviously, on what goes down with this vote coming up here later in the evening. Really appreciate it. Let's take it to the Midwest, because a fiery crash today on an Ohio interstate between a truck and a charter bus full of students has left at least 3 people dead and 15 more hurt, according to officials there. Look at this. This is emergency crews at the scene. Big fire. Look at all that smoke billowing up. The Ohio governor called this crash our worst nightmare.
I just want to express my deepest sympathy on behalf of the people of the state of Ohio, to all the families, everyone who has been injured, everyone family who had a member who died. This is just a tragedy that you can hardly ever imagine it.
Maggie Vespa is covering this story for us. Maggie, a lot of details still coming in as this story develops here. What do we know about what caused this crash or about the investigation here?
So the investigation is still ongoing, which, Hallie, as you know, is really no surprise when you look at a scene that big, right? I mean, the interstate has been closed for several hours, and basically they have crash reconstruction teams trying to figure out why. And it's pretty apparent when you look at this scene why that semi-truck seemingly rear-ended this charter bus filled with students from Northeast Ohio. The district said they were on their way to a conference in Columbus. Our Columbus affiliate reporting it was actually a charter bus of high school students and their chaperones. We talked about the numbers. Those have been updated throughout the day. Again, we were told 18 were taken to the hospital. We were told 15 of them were children. And also of the 18, county officials have said 3 have died. And we phrase it that way because we don't know if children are among the dead, if all 3 who were killed are adults. We're still waiting on that information. Authorities right now don't want to name the dead because they say they're still working to contact all of the families. This bus had driven from a rural school district in Northeast Ohio. They'd been on the road for about 2.5 hours when this scene played out. And you can see, if we can get a shot, there were a couple of shots of the side of the crash. The semi-truck hit the back of the bus seemingly, and then immediately both caught fire. And so we saw people, our crews on the ground and witnesses saw people running off of the bus. But again, we were told well over a dozen, almost close to 24 injured. Again, a majority of them kids. And tonight we have 3 fatalities. So we are still awaiting more updates, possibly tonight from officials in Ohio on exactly who passed away in this crash and again, what might have caused it. But just a horrific, tragic scene on that interstate that played out and is to continue to play out throughout the day. Hallie.
We'll look for more updates tonight. Maggie Vespa, thank you very much. To the economy now, and some good news. Things are not getting as expensive as quickly as they used to be. But to a lot of folks, it still feels like things are just more expensive than they used to be. This is according to some new government numbers that are out today, laying out that the price that we pay for stuff did not go up from September to October. 0.0, like numbers you want to see on the board, right, if you care about your budget. But here's the reality. A lot of people, even with that, are still struggling to pay their bills because prices just generally are a lot higher than a couple of years ago. Our Morgan Radford was out in North Dakota talking to folks about how they make ends meet. Listen to this.
What grade would you give the economy right now?
Like a 3 or a 4 out of 10.
The economy is getting better, but my job is staying the same.
The price of every single ingredient that we've used has gone up at least 15 to 20% in the last year.
All right, I want to bring in Christine Romans, who is joining us now. Christine, we're glad to have you. Let me take this in buckets here. Bucket number 1, just specifically on these inflation numbers. A slowdown, right? A lot of that comes from a drop in gas prices. Food prices, a little more unpredictable. Talk us through what stands out to you on this.
So you're right. Gas prices, that's a big part of it. They fell. Airfares fell. That's something to note for travelers heading into the end of the year. But you're right. Food prices, 4 of the 6 food categories went up a little bit here. But what we're really watching here, this Main Street, Wall Street disconnect, right? Wall Street loves that number was only 0.0, unchanged from September to October, that overall inflation is 3.3%, 3.2%, not 3.7% like last month. That's what Wall Street is really cheering. But Main Street, you're absolutely right. Main Street doesn't care about inflation rates. Main Street cares about inflation levels. And a lot of the stuff we buy every day is still more expensive than it was a couple of years ago. And, frankly, core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy, that still came in at 4%. That's double what the Federal Reserve would like to see, Hallie.
So that brings us to bucket number 2, Christine. Quite a tee up there, right? Because, like, when we put that number 0.0 up on screen, we were talking months ago, inflation was at like 7.8%. Yeah. Now it's at 3 something. Like there is a change. Like that line graph is going down. Yeah. People don't feel it. You heard that woman tell Morgan she feels like the economy is a 3 out of 10, even with unemployment rates relatively low, even with the pace of inflation slowing down. What is it going to take for people to actually be like, okay, my money stretches a little further at the grocery store than it used to?
It might take a longer period of time of inflation not rising. It might take the Fed not raising interest rates anymore and people really getting used to these higher interest rates. And it might just take time heals all wounds, Hallie. It might just take a little time for people to get over that shock of inflation, the great national inflation nightmare of the past year or so. Things are getting better, but the polls are saying people don't believe it quite yet.
So real quick then, what is the Fed going to do here, right? Because there have been a lot of headlines. Well, this reduces pressure on the Fed to keep hiking interest rate. You think that's right?
You know, if you see a few more months like this, I think the Fed can stand pat. But Fed Chair Jay Powell, as you probably know this week or last week, said there have been a lot of head fakes on the inflation story. They got it wrong in the beginning. I think they'll still be cautious. I think they're not going to rule out more rate hikes if inflation, in fact, does rear its ugly head again.
Christine Romans, thank you very much for that breakdown. Appreciate it. Today, President Biden's announcing a ton of new money, $6 billion, to try to fight climate change, even as we're getting this troubling new report that says nowhere in this country is safe from it.
It takes time for the investments we're making to be fully materialized, but we just have to keep at it. We need to do more and move faster. We have the tools to do it.
This new report shows that this country, the U.S., is warming like 60% faster than the whole rest of the world. So no matter where you live, no matter where you go in America, this climate getting warmer is going to affect your life. It also highlights some of the worst places where you can feel the impact. Phoenix area, for example, seeing extreme drought, heat, out-of-control fires like the ones here. Remember this video, too, the crazy wildfire smoke blanketing New York City earlier this year? This report says we can expect more stuff like this on top of really hot temperatures. I want to get right to Bill Cairns now. Bill, I think the hard thing when we talk about some of these climate reports is it just feels like a drumbeat of terrible news, right? It is just like constant doom. We're screwed. The climate's screwed. Like, what can people take from this that is constructive? And do you think this money, based on the reporting and the expertise that you have in this field, that President Biden is putting into place here, is actually going to make a difference?
Anything helps, Hallie. I mean, we have to. If you just give you negative information just constantly, it just depresses people and they just block it out. They don't want to hear about it. So this comes out every 4 years, our government. This is only about the United States, the impacts here. This isn't the world reports that we get from the IPCC. So the biggest thing that we're doing, the U.S. is warming about 60% faster than the world. You know, Alaska, the higher north you are, the faster you're warming up. Alaska is increasingly warming about 4.2 degrees since 1970, which is almost like shocking. You got it's fast enough that you can actually notice it. So let me go to some of my maps to kind of show you what we are looking at here. So the temperature and carbon dioxide. These trends go together. They're going up. There's no arguments there. Everyone knows that. If you know, the people that don't believe it, they're just not believing the science. It's been proven. So the scenarios that are still possible, all the climate scientists I talked to said, take out the very high, take out the very low. So far, the U.S. has warmed up since about when I was born in 1975, about 3 degrees. By the end of this, century, it could go as more as 5 to 10 degrees. It's all up to us and the people of the world how much fossil fuels we emit. So where you live by the next 60 years could warm another 7 degrees from where it is right now. And we know the warmer it's going to get, we're going to get more disasters, especially the billion-dollar disasters. Texas, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, California, those are all the ones that have been hit the hardest so far.
Bill Cairns, thank you for that breakdown. Really appreciate it. I know there's lots to watch there, lots to take from it. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, how long it's going to take to fix that busy stretch of California highway that got messed up in a fire, and why the governor is saying things could have actually been worse. Plus, a Colorado hiker lucky to be alive after getting stuck in a bad snowstorm with no food, no water. What this person was wearing when rescuers got there, coming up. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Army is overturning the convictions of more than 100 black soldiers from the early 1900s, including 19 soldiers who got the death penalty at the time. They'd all been found guilty of crimes associated with the Houston riots, but now the board says they were wrongly treated because of their race and did not get fair trials. Number 2, the BBC says it's now investigating 5 complaints against comedian Russell Brand for, quote-unquote, inappropriate behavior. Remember, Brand has been accused of sexual assault by 4 women in a joint investigation by British media outlets back in September. The BBC also says it seems like no disciplinary action was taken against Brand while he worked there. 2 UK police forces are also investigating. Brand has denied all the allegations against him. Number 3, the CDC says at least 22 toddlers across 14 states got sick from lead linked to tainted pouches of cinnamon apple puree and applesauce. The reported symptoms included stuff like headaches and vomiting. Remember, Wanabana, Schnucks, and Weiss all recalled some of their fruit pouches because of potential lead contamination. The CDC says kids who may have eaten them should get tested for lead levels. Number 4, NFL star Patrick Mahomes is sharing the secret weapon to his success, not Travis Kelce, but his lucky pair of red underwear. Mahomes says he's worn the same pair for every game of his 6-year career. And when asked how often he cleans them, Mahomes says, if we're on a hot streak, I can't wash them. I just got to keep it rolling. NFL players, they're just like us. I'm just kidding. Number 5, an animated biopic of French singer Edith Piaf is in the works. Warner Music plans to use AI to recreate her voice and image nearly 60 years after her death. They say they're partnering with her estate to make it happen. If this happens, if it does get produced, it would be the first ever animated biopic of an artist using AI. Please, when we come back, try to shake out the image of Patrick Mahomes' underwear out of your head, because we got some serious stuff to get to, right? We are watching what's going down in San Francisco, including President Biden just touching down ahead of his big meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who's expected to arrive there any minute now. You're looking at a live pic. We've got a preview of what this face-to-face could look like more than a year after the leaders last spoke. Any moment now, we expect to see the Chinese president landing in California for this meeting tomorrow with President Biden. It is a high-stakes meeting. And if you're like, Hallie, I know you hate the words high stakes. I do, but I say them because this is, right? This is a big deal. This is a huge deal because right now tensions between these two countries are really high. These two leaders have not spoken since a meeting in Bali last year. They haven't met, at least. And since then, we've seen these two wars play out. We've seen that Chinese spy balloon fly over sensitive sites in this country. And we've seen a lot of questions over Taiwan's independence as you're taking a live look now at the San Francisco airport. With all of this, the White House is saying there is no detail too small, according to sources, when it comes to this meeting, which means that every part of Xi's visit is very highly choreographed, according to people familiar with the planning. Super choreographed, ranging from what President Xi will see outside his window during his car ride in to what camera angle he's recorded from. Overall, China is looking for Xi's trip to California to be seen as what officials call a grand visit. Monica Alba is behind this reporting for us. She's joining us live now from San Francisco. Like any meeting involves choreography between two heads of state, right? Like that is a given when you're the president of a country here. But the White House seems to have gone to some really great lengths to accommodate Xi, to accommodate what he and his team want, as the stakes, as we say, are like really elevated for this thing. What does the U.S. hope to get out of it?
Super high stakes, Hallie, you're right, but low-ish expectations for how this might go and what the actual outcomes may be from this face-to-face tomorrow here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I say that specifically to show you just in terms of the degree that the Chinese officials have gone to in order to ask the U.S. not to reveal exactly where this meeting is going to take place tomorrow, except for that more general area here in Northern California. And that is a part of the secrecy and a little bit of the operational security aspect that the Chinese are looking to deliver here for President Xi, which is to provide visuals, they say in their words, that will be more pleasant for him as he comes to the U.S. for the first time in about 6 years. And that includes minimizing any potential protests or anti-China demonstrations that we do expect to take place here in San Francisco with the APEC summit as the larger backdrop. But absolutely, these details that you mentioned, down from the camera angle that President Xi will be captured on to the flowers in the room, the seating arrangement, all of that has been negotiated painstakingly between the U.S. and China when it comes to this summit tomorrow that we expect to take place over a matter of hours. Some potential outcomes here that the U.S. and China want to find some common ground are potentially on fentanyl, stemming the U.S. flow of that from China into Mexico, and then, of course, attempting to reestablish some military-to-military communications, which had stopped since then Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last year, and then, of course, in the diplomatic fallout since the Chinese spy balloon that flew over the U.S. was shot down. Hallie.
Monica Alba, we were looking live on the other side of the screen at what we believe, what we're told is Xi Jinping's plane landing in now from China to San Francisco to start off what is going to be a pretty dramatic day and a half or so of meetings. Mon, thank you very much. That all brings us to tonight's backstory now, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, it is all about this meeting here, Biden and Xi, perhaps the biggest test of the president's long-held view that all politics, even foreign policy, is personal. Our Mike Memoli has been on the Joe Biden beat for more than a decade. He traveled with him on a critical visit that the then former vice president made to China all the way back in 2011. Here's more from Mem on the expectations then and now.
Joe Biden has long prided himself on the deep relationships he's developed at home and abroad over 5 decades in public life, arguing it has enabled him to get things done, even with potential opponents and adversaries. And when it comes to Xi Jinping, Biden has often, over and over, boasted that he knows him as well as any world leader.
I probably spent more time with Xi Jinping. More time with Xi Jinping. More time with him than any world leader has. I've spoken with him more than any other head of state.
Little was known about Xi in 2011 when then Vice President Biden flew to China for their first extensive one-on-one meetings.
We knew that he was slated to be the next leader of China, but we didn't know very much about him.
Kurt Campbell, one of Biden's top China advisors now, traveled with Biden then.
I think President Xi was quite an opaque individual. He was very careful in his discussions with the president, but still, in his questions and his comments, we got to know a little bit about him.
I also traveled with Biden over the 5-day visit, first for high-level meetings in Beijing.
We would like to work with your country.
And then more informal sessions outside the capital. Biden shot hoops alongside Xi at a school in a rural Sichuan province. And the two men toured an ancient irrigation system. But everyone on that trip knew that for all the touring and photo ops, it was the conversations at the private dinner afterwards that really set the table for the decade to come. Biden offered some initial thoughts the next day, expressing optimism about the future of the U.S.-China relationship.
A rising China will fuel economic growth and prosperity, and it will bring to the fore a new partner with whom we can meet global challenges together.
Speaking with reporters on Air Force 2 later, Biden offered early impressions of Xi, saying he is strong and he is pragmatic and genuinely wants a relationship. Biden would meet Xi again the next year when he visited Washington for a first meeting with President Obama. Biden and Xi also traveled together to California, focused on the economy. Those meetings, and others to come, were part of a careful choreography to manage the transition of power in Beijing. In conversations since Biden returned to the White House, both he and Xi often recall those initial interactions.
It's almost like competitive memory. Who can remember what we had for lunch, or I remember what we discussed, something that the other said could be used in some way to gain advantage.
From competitive memories to competitive geopolitics, the U.S.-China relationship since those early meetings has become increasingly strained. In the 2020 campaign, Biden took heat for seeming to downplay the threat posed by China.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
Well, he is very naive about China. China just, during the Obama years in particular, just took advantage of our country so badly. A very, very big competition, China. And I've stopped it.
Biden's view, aides say, is that the U.S. is engaged in competition with China and Xi to shape the world in the 21st century. It's that tension with China that's been a key Biden argument in selling his administration's agenda on issues like infrastructure and advanced manufacturing.
It's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world, particularly China. I've told Xi Jinping it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people.
Wednesday's meeting will be just the second face-to-face encounter between Biden and Xi since Biden took office. It's the first direct discussion since tensions with China ramped up after Biden ordered a spy balloon downed over the U.S. And it comes as Xi has maintained close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, raising concern about whether Xi may move on Taiwan like Putin moved on Ukraine. Campbell says this is where the long relationship pays off.
Look, the president puts a lot of stake in being able to sit down and work through issues, even with leaders that he has disagreements with. I think that we'll be able to call on that previous experience as we sit down together in San Francisco.
Mike Memoli is joining us now, author of the upcoming book about Joe Biden. I think I can say that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I hope so. I'm sorry. I think it's been announced, right?
It's been announced.
Okay, fine.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
My point is that you know this. You know this president, right? You understand his relationship with Xi Jinping, as we just laid out here. They're not going to be shooting hoops tomorrow in California. No. Like that's not a thing that's going to happen. Right? Exactly. Not part of those details we talked about. But it's one thing to have a relationship. It's another to turn that relationship into policy. How is President Biden going to do that?
Well, that's what this is all about, right? How does this relationship advantage the American people? And what's interesting in talking to Kurt Campbell and other advisors, there are less sort of deliverables, to use the term of art, that the White House is really looking for at this point.
Explain what a deliverable is to humans who don't cover the
They want economic benefits for the American people. They want a reduction of tariffs maybe that China has on the import of U.S. goods.
It's like a checklist of things they want to get out of any given meeting. And in this instance, there's economic benefits they hope to.
And what the U.S. really wants is predictability. We're heading into a presidential election year, and Kurt Campbell said this, stay out of our knitting was the term he used, not just in the U.S. election, but the Taiwanese election, because she is an autocrat. That's, I think, one of the most fascinating things looking back to Biden's early and initial impressions of Xi. I don't think he predicted that he was going to consolidate power in the way he has in China. Because remember, the reason for the meeting in 2011 was because China had term limits for its presidents, and they knew Xi was about to become president.
She got rid of
the term limits, right? And so he's meeting him now in that context, and seeing how he's moved in this authoritarian way is part of what's sort of looming over this meeting.
Did you think 12 years ago, covering this Biden-Xi discussion then, that you would be sitting here having this conversation now? Not from your personal perspective, but in the point of Joe Biden now being the president.
One of the other questions I asked him on Air Force 2 was, remember what the context was. This is late 2011. Obama was thinking of dumping Biden from the ticket. He said, I haven't figured out how to get myself off the ticket. He made light of it at the time. So I didn't think I'd be covering Joe Biden still as president of the United States now, and I don't think thought he'd be dealing with Xi Jinping still as president of China right now.
It was so fascinating, Mike Emily. We're so glad to have you walking us through all of that. Appreciate it. Ahead of a big day tomorrow. Thank you. We'll see you again, I'm sure. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, officials in Colorado say a hiker wearing just a hoodie, a cotton hoodie, has been found alive after being stuck for hours in a bad snowstorm. This person was apparently trying to climb thousands of feet up a ridge when this bad weather rolled in. They used a phone to call for help, but search teams couldn't pick up the GPS, so they tracked footprints, old school style. The hiker was hypothermic, according to officials, but is expected to be okay. Just an incredible rescue. Also out of our Western Bureau, California's governor says the damaged stretch of an LA highway doesn't have to be demolished and can be fixed in maybe 3 weeks. Remember, that big fire shut down the highway. Officials say it was set intentionally. No arrests have been made yet, but they're looking into it. And out of our Southern Bureau, police in Texas say they arrested a man who stole a city-installed camera. Turns out the camera was still sending photos back to them after he stole it. And apparently these are some of the photos. They didn't realize this was happening, but he made investigators' jobs a little bit easier, obviously, by taking all those pictures with some distinctive tattoos after he stole the camera. Coming up here on the show, a lot more Israelis are buying guns after the October 7th attacks overseas. What's changed to make it easier to get a license now? That's coming up next in The Original. So tonight's Original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's Israel's military fighting in Gaza. And as that happens, more civilians are buying guns back at home in Israel. The government says tens of thousands of permits and licenses have been issued in just the last month. Here's our Jay Gray with more.
It's not that hard to spot a weapon on the streets of Tel Aviv or anywhere in Israel right now. Rifles strapped across the backs of reservists. But now, there's a new weapon of choice here. Israelis pulling the trigger on purchasing handguns. Many of the first-time buyers, women.
Hi, I have 2 young boys. The big one is 8, the little one is 4. They are waking up, screaming in the middle of the night. It breaks my heart, and as a mom, I have to do anything I can to keep them safe.
Safety is why Israel's controversial national security minister, Ben-Gvir, says he's pushing to arm as many civilians as possible. A leader of the far-right Jewish Power Party, he brandished a handgun last year in a confrontation with Palestinians, saying he acted in self-defense. 2 days after the horrific October 7th attacks, Gvir launched what he calls an emergency operation to distribute more guns.
It's something that, you know, I saw how many kids were killed. I saw how easy it was. So I think that the weapon next to me is better just in case.
The procedure for getting a firearm license, which used to take months and included in-person interviews, now is done over the phone with a permit issued in less than a week.
So we have a giant influx of people coming from all parts of the country. All different gun ranges all over the place, all over the country are also completely swamped.
Since October 7th, the Israeli Ministry of National Security says more than 220,000 eligible civilians have applied for a gun license, compared to around 36,000 in the 9 months before the attacks. And it says in the last month, more than 26,000 conditional permits and more than 15,000 new licenses have been issued.
For the most part, it's self-defense. You want to defend your family, you want to defend your community, you want to defend your people.
Israelis targeting any sense of security they can find right now.
I want to bring in Jay Gray, who is live for us now in Tel Aviv. A lot of these Israelis say they're buying guns for self-defense. Can you talk through what else you're hearing on the ground there about why people are doing this?
Yeah, Hallie, a lot of people are concerned after seeing, they say, how easy those attacks were. But let's talk a little bit about the pushback as well. The Israeli government has requested 24,000 automatic weapons from the U.S., but is getting a bit of that pushback from members of Congress, some officials with the State Department, concerned about where those guns might end up. They could end up in the wrong hands, they fear. And according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, shootings have increased dramatically in Israel, and specifically in the volatile West Bank since October 7th, and then the easing of those gun regulations. And they say many of the victims, in fact, a vast majority, are Palestinians.
Jay Gray, thank you very much for that reporting, for bringing us that story. Here is our original tonight on the show. Jay, thank you. Still to come here on the show, a new study about the processed foods we eat and what they mean for our health. It's not all bad news. We'll explain in just a sec. So tonight, even more evidence that certain foods that a lot of us like to eat, soda, chips, beef jerky, could be raising the risk of getting really sick with potentially cancer, diabetes, heart disease. This is according to a new study backed by the WHO out today. It found that animal products like meat and dairy and sugary drinks were the biggest culprits of the eventual potential for deadly diseases. However, hold the freak out. It is not all bad news. The new research also shows that some breads and cereals, which are also pretty processed, can actually lower your risk for these serious conditions because they're higher in fiber. Dr. Natalie Azar is joining us now. So, Dr. Natalie, listen, not earth-shattering news that processed food is not the best for your health, right? You have seen some of these impacts in these patients. So what should we be thinking about with this study? What surprised you in this study? What did you not expect to hear?
Well, I definitely didn't expect to hear that some processed foods were good for us, because when you think, or maybe not so much good, well, actually, in the case of the breads and the cereals, they actually potentially showed a decline in risk of certain cancers, potentially because of that fiber. But I think if we don't want to conflate not being bad for you for also being good for you. But it certainly wasn't surprising, especially that animal products and the sugary, sweetened beverages, we have known for years that those are potentially bad for us. And what they defined, Hallie, was this concept of multimorbidity. That is, 2 or more chronic diseases from this. So not just developing cancer, or not just developing, diabetes or becoming obese, but it's having cancer plus one of those chronic conditions. And that is a major, major big deal. But I would have been surprised if it had shown the opposite, that eating these foods didn't have a negative impact on your health. That would have definitely been shocking.
You're right, and that key of multimorbidity is sort of the other piece of what's new here. It's not as though, if you take the converse perspective, though, it's not like we can only eat fruits and vegetables and expect to not have any kind of harmful diseases later in our life, right, too? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this.
Absolutely. And I think, just to kind of really to drive home the point to people that we cannot expect people to only ever buy plant-based whole foods and never have anything processed or packaged. You and I are both moms. We know that that is not realistic. And I do think it's reassuring to hear that certain plant-based alternatives were okay. Certain desserts and sweets were even in the kind of okay category, but especially, breads and cereals, which are really a staple, especially in the American diet, didn't seem to have too much of a negative impact on folks. And that is a message I think that most of us can hear and resonates very well for the physician in me and also for the mom in me, that we do our best. We can't be perfect. Dr. Natalie Azar, that's, I think, a good message, right? Try to hit perfection. Don't stress out if you can't get there. Natalie Azar, thank you very much. Appreciate it. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight huge crowds of people have been out here in Washington. Look at this. People flooding the National Mall. They're condemning anti-Semitism, supporting Israel, demanding the release of the 200-plus people being held hostage by Hamas right now. With President Biden, for his part, answering a shouted question today, saying negotiators may not be closer to getting a deal on the table, but he's got a message directly to the people kidnapped, telling them, hang in there, we're coming.
I've been talking with the people involved every single day. I believe it's going to happen, but I don't want to get into detail.
I believe it's going to happen, he says. This is on the heels of some other big news we're getting out of the White House, with officials in just the last couple of hours say they have what they're calling information that Hamas uses hospitals in Gaza to store weapons and to hold some of those hostages, a claim that Hamas, Palestinian doctors, and health officials deny. Right now in Gaza, people are trapped in the main hospital there. They're struggling to take care of those still alive, burying close to 200 bodies in a mass grave, according to one doctor talking with our team, with fighting still happening nearby. That doctor also says 36 premature babies, including the ones you're seeing on your screen. Those babies are out of incubators because there's no power right now. They're on manual respirators, meaning somebody is physically helping them breathe. They are still alive, he says. We should note, though, we can't say for sure when these pictures you're seeing were taken. Israel says it'll bring some mobile incubators to the hospital. NBC News can't say whether that's actually going to happen or when. But in just the last 24 hours, the push to try to evacuate this hospital seems to have failed. The UN says all of northern Gaza has just one functioning hospital left, and the IDF says late today it now has control of Hamas buildings in Gaza City. It comes as we are hearing and seeing sirens going off regularly in southern Israel, a new signal of what could be new rocket attacks from Hamas and new questions about what comes next. Raf Sanchez is live for us on the ground in Tel Aviv, but we'll start with Gabe Gutierrez here in Washington because this was a massive rally, one of the biggest that we've seen here in this country in support of Israel. Talk us through some of the folks that you talked to, Gabe, and the message here.
Hi there, Hallie. Well, actually, organizers say that this was the largest pro-Israel demonstration in the U.S. since the war began. At least tens of thousands of people showed up here on the National Mall. And as you said, they came really from all parts of the country. Many of them were bused here overnight. We spoke with some groups from really across the country, including one in particular from Cleveland. She was a woman that came here early this morning, and both of her parents were Holocaust survivors, and she felt really called to be here. Take a listen as to why.
I can show up, I can stand up for the people in the same way that my parents stood up by saying we're not going to let what happened to us in the Holocaust defeat us. We're not going to run away and hide and say life is over. We have hope. We always have hope that there will be a better day.
And Hallie, that is something we heard over and over again. And many of the people who came to this rally were, demanding Hamas release its hostages, as you mentioned, but also calling for an end to the anti-Semitic attacks we've seen both here in the U.S. and around the world. Again, but the one grateful part of all this, while local authorities and federal authorities, the Department of Homeland Security, had raised the security threat level for this march, as of last check, no arrests and no major counter demonstrations here, Hallie.
We've also heard a message from President Biden today, right? And the message is largely hang tight for some of these hostages. Even as in the region, families of some of these hostages are starting this march tonight from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to try to push for the Israeli government to do more, to get these people kidnapped by Hamas terrorists out. Talk more about that piece of it and the pressure that people, not just here in Washington, but overseas, are looking to put on their leaders to light more of a fire here.
Well, certainly, Hallie, and this is something we've been hearing over and over again over the last several weeks as frustration has mounted because more hostages have not been released. We know that some of those family members met with officials at the White House last night, and some of those family members of hostages actually spoke here at the rally as well, urging the media, urging the public to keep those hostages at the top of their minds. And you heard that response from President Biden today, telling those families of those hostages to hang tight, to hang in there. And you mentioned those families in Israel that are now planning to march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Again, increasing frustration really around the world that this hostage release is not happening as quickly as some expected. However, both the Biden administration and the Israeli government has repeatedly said that's on Hamas, not the Israel or the U.S. Hallie?
Gabe Gutierrez live for us there in Washington. Gabe, thanks. I want to get to the region now where Raf Sanchez is live for us in Tel Aviv. So, Raf, I want to get to more of your reporting specifically on this Al-Shifa hospital in a second. But let me start with this interesting piece of information that we're getting from the White House here, where the sort of national security spokesperson, John Kirby, who viewers might be familiar with, says the White House has information that Hamas is using hospitals to store weapons, to store hostages. This mirrors what we've heard from the IDF. Why is this so significant? Why is this so important? And explain what we do and don't know.
So what's significant about this, Hallie, is this is the United States saying it has its own intelligence showing that both Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad are using hospitals in the Gaza Strip as command centers, storing weapons there, and in some cases even keeping hostages underneath them. They're not saying this is Israeli intelligence and we think it's true. They're saying the United States has its own intelligence. What they are not saying, Hallie, is what that intelligence is. Both John Kirby and the Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary were asked multiple times by journalists, how do you know this? They wouldn't get into any detail. The United States obviously has vast intelligence gathering capacities. We know the United States has unmanned drones flying reconnaissance missions over Gaza. The United States has an enormous ability to intercept phone calls, other kinds of electronic communications. But we're not used to hearing the United States say that it has direct intelligence on what is going on inside Gaza. It's worth saying the U.S. says, despite what it claims to know about a Hamas command center underneath the Al-Shifa hospital, the main hospital in Gaza City, they do not want to see Israel bomb that facility. They do not want to see Israeli forces storm it. They say they don't want the hundreds of patients, the several hundred families who are seeking shelter at that hospital to be put in the crossfire by military operations. Hamas, we should say, is denying both the Israeli claims that were made yesterday and these American claims made tonight. Hallie.
So much of the world's attention, Raf, is on those premature babies, those infants that we showed just a couple of moments ago at the start of the show here, 36 preemies who are now no longer on incubators because there's no electricity. They're having to use manual respirators with staff physically doing that kind of work. And on top of that, more babies are still being born every day. You are talking with mothers who've given birth here at hospitals all along the Gaza Strip as they struggle to keep people alive, right? I mean, talk to us about some of that reporting, which you heard from some of these moms about this fight that they have, not just for their lives, but for their children's lives as well.
Yeah, Hallie, so the United Nations says there are 50,000 pregnant women in Gaza, 180 of whom are giving birth every single day amid the chaos of war. These are children that were conceived in relative peace, and now these mothers are giving birth in wartime. And doctors are telling us many of them are giving birth prematurely because of the chaos, because of the stress, because sometimes just the physical situation around them. We spoke to one mother who was buried with her young son underneath rubble when, she says, an Israeli airstrike brought their house crashing down. She survived. Her unborn daughter survived, but she had to go into an emergency cesarean section. I want you to take a listen to a little bit of what she told our team in Gaza earlier.
Sham spent 5 days in the incubator. They told us to pray for her to stay alive. She was affected by the strikes. Her lungs were affected.
So her little daughter is thankfully okay. We spoke to another woman who gave birth at the end of one of these miles-long marches from Gaza City to the relative safety of southern Gaza. She said she passed by firefights, she passed by Israeli tanks, and when she got to the end of this march, her contractions began, and she has no doubt in her mind that she gave birth early because of the fear and because of the exhaustion, and that is just the story for so many moms in Gaza right now. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, it's critical reporting, and we're glad to have you bring it to us. Thank you so much. We'll bring it back to some news here at home now, domestically in this country, because in just the last couple of minutes, as we've been on the air over on Capitol Hill, look at this. This is a live look here. Members of the House have voted to keep the lights on for the United States government, at least through January, using the help of Democrats. So now this whole package, as you see the live look at the House floor, the gavel dropping there last hour, the whole package heads over to the Senate. Right, that means that this looks like we may be able to avoid what would be a catastrophic shutdown and a whole lot of drama at the end of this week. However, just because it may seem like a shutdown is on the way to getting avoided doesn't mean there wasn't a whole lot of other drama anyway. What is happening on Capitol Hill? Let me explain this. You had one Republican congressman saying he took an elbow to the kidneys, like an on purpose, got smacked, basically, by none other than former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Listen to what Tim Burchett said.
It was 100% on purpose, man. What did it take? 435 members of Congress, 8 of us voted against him. I'm the one who did it.
I did not run and hit the guy. I did not kidney punch him. I did not shoot anything like that.
You didn't shove him?
No.
On the other side of the Hill, you have a Republican senator from Oklahoma and the president of the Teamsters Union threatening to throw down. Just like, do it. Throw it. Look at this.
You want to run your mouth? We can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
stop it.
Is that your solution, everybody?
No, sit down.
Sorry, Eric,
sit down. Okay. You're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
Dang, and they look ready to go. Senator Josh Hallie, Republican, telling us that things seem a little tense. I'd say so. Saying maybe it's time for Thanksgiving. Perhaps, in fact, it is. NBC's Ryan Nobles is with us on Capitol Hill. Let's set the boys' bad behavior to the side for just 1 second here, and let's talk about what we just saw going down to the House of Representatives as it relates to this vote. This made it through, Republicans and Democrats together. The Senate is, I think our reporting is, expected to pass this bill without a whole lot of trouble. However, this is short term, right? This simply kicks the can down the road to January and February, which means you and I are probably going to have this same discussion again just a couple of months from now. So what's going to change between now and January, February to prevent the can kicking in the future? Because we're only going to be more into an election year. We're only going to be more, dug into both sides looking to win over Congress in 24.
Yeah, Hallie, this was a necessary evil. There was no way that they were going to pass a long-term budget bill and have that done by Friday in order to avoid a government shutdown. So they had to do something, as you say, just to keep the lights on and extend these talks through the new year. But you're absolutely right. It's going to be very difficult once they come back from their holiday recess to begin the process of serious negotiations for a long-term spending plan. And what's even more interesting about this particular package that they're working to pass is that it's actually going to come in 2 waves. So we're going to be having 2 different discussions about a shutdown. And we can show you the 2 different tranches of government funding that will be due at different times, one in January, perhaps a bigger tranche of bills due in February. So that's going to mean a whole host of other negotiations that are going to have to take place in a number of different facets. And the real problem here, Hallie, is while this stops this problem for right now, it doesn't get to the core, is that there is still a big divide between Republicans and Democrats over a long-term spending bill. There's a big divide between Republicans and Republicans over a long-term spending bill. And it doesn't do a lot of other things that the White House would like to see happen, including extending aid for Ukraine, extending aid to Israel, an additional border security package, and even perhaps funding for Taiwan as well. So while they're going to get through this and they're not going to shut down the government, all these big problems that they have to deal with are still going to be waiting for them when they come back after the holidays.
Can I ask you, though, do you think that the new House Speaker, Mike Johnson, is getting a bit of a honeymoon period here? Like, do you think that some of his colleagues are giving him the benefit of the doubt in a way that they didn't, let's say, for Kevin McCarthy previously?
I mean, there's no way they aren't, Hallie, simply because what Mike Johnson has done today is almost exactly what Kevin McCarthy did a few months ago and what, principally led to him getting booted from his speakership. I mean, the only thing he did differently was separate some of the deadlines out. The fundamental act of pushing through an extension of spending at the same exact levels that they were before is what Kevin McCarthy did. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us that it was personal with Kevin McCarthy, that many of these members just didn't trust him for a wide range of issues. At least at the beginning, they're willing to trust Mike Johnson to give him more time to negotiate a broader spending package with some of their priorities packed into it. We'll see how long that honeymoon lasts.
Fine. Can you just help us understand, when we're looking at the scope of what happened over the course of the day here in the Capitol, you had the former House Speaker having to deny that he kidney punched a fellow lawmaker, and then on the Senate side, you know, people getting up out of their chairs, they're going to stand their butts up, they're going to take it outside. Like, what is happening? What is going on? Why are they so testy?
Yeah. You know, I've covered a lot of hearings, both in the House and on the Senate, and they get testy a lot. You know, members, witnesses will get angry. I've never seen it get to this stage where a sitting United States senator actually stands up and started taking his wedding ring off. Did you notice that? I mean, he was ready to throw punches. And I think it is indicative of just kind of the culture that we have. There it is. There's the wedding ring. That's the, you know, just to say, it would be really hard for me to get my wedding ring off for a wide range of reasons. But still, the issue here is that there is just a level of tension that exists right now on Capitol Hill that we haven't seen in a really long time. And, you know, the situation with Markwayne Mullin and the president of the Teamsters versus the situation with Tim Burchett and Kevin McCarthy, they're two separate and completely different issues. Right. They happen for different reasons, but it just speaks to what's going on up here, and it could be part of the reason they're having such a hard time getting things done.
Well, as Senator Hallie said, maybe everybody needs to chill, have a little Thanksgiving break, come back full of turkey and refreshed, as I'm sure you will be as well. Ryan Nobles, we'll talk again before then. Thank you so much. Let's take you out to the Midwest today because this fiery crash in Ohio between a truck and a charter bus full of students has left at least 3 people dead and 15 more hurt, according to officials. You are seeing some of the aftermath here. Emergency crews, look at that billowing cloud of smoke coming up. The Ohio governor calling this crash our worst nightmare.
I just want to express my deepest sympathy on behalf of the people of the state of Ohio. To all the families, everyone who has been injured, everyone who family who had a member who died. This is just a tragedy that no one you can hardly ever imagine it.
Maggie Vespa is covering this one for us. She's joining us now. There's still a lot we don't know about what happened in this crash. Maggie, talk us through it.
Right. Yeah, so essentially, Hallie, I mean, the interstate remains closed, and basically investigators are trying to answer a lot of the questions that do, as you point out, linger here almost 12 hours after the crash. It happened around 8:30 this morning on a busy I-70 just east of Columbus, Ohio, and you can see the wreckage, right, and the carnage. This is a huge scene. So crash investigators and kind of reconstructionists are going to have their hands full trying to work through what exactly happened, what triggered this crash, because we focus on this on the charter bus filled, authorities say, with students from Northeast Ohio and also their chaperones. And we focus on the semi that seemed to hit it from behind. But authorities actually telling us 5 vehicles total were involved in this crash, and they're trying to figure out maybe it was a chain reaction. Maybe one hit one from behind, causing others to keep hitting the ones in front of them moving forward. A lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty remain. But what we do know, the heartbreaking part of this, is that 18 people, authorities say, were sent to the hospital. They told us late today, of those 18, 15, they say, were children. Also, of those 18, county officials tell us 3 people have died. And the reason we kind of phrase that in such a convoluted way is that we don't know which of the 18 children, adults, you name it, are among the dead. Basically, authorities, including the governor who you just heard from, say they want to make sure they contact all families and really get their ducks in a row before they make that information public. Because as you can see, again, this is incredibly complicated, but also just incredibly painful and tragic as this continues to play out in Ohio tonight. Allie.
Maggie Vespa, thank you very much for that update. To the economy now, and some good news. Things are not getting expensive as quickly as they used to be. But to a lot of folks, it still feels like things are just more expensive than they used to be. That's this new government report laying out that the prices we pay for things, they didn't change from September to October, meaning inflation slowed down. It held steady, prices did. Sounds great, right? But the reality is it may not feel so great because a lot of people are still struggling to pay their bills with prices still generally higher than they were a few years ago. Our Morgan Radford was out talking with voters in North Dakota, talking with people who buy things. Listen to what they told her.
What grade would you give the economy right now?
Like a 3 or a 4 out of 10.
The economy is getting better, but my job is staying the same.
The price of every single ingredient that we use has gone up at least 15 to 20% in the last year.
All right, I want to bring in Christine Romans, who is joining us now. Christine, we're glad to have you. Let me take this in buckets here. Bucket number one, just specifically on these inflation numbers. A slowdown, right? A lot of that comes from a drop in gas prices. Yep. Food prices, a little more unpredictable. Talk us through what stands out to you on this.
So you're right. Gas prices, that's a big part of it. They fell. Airfares fell. That's something to note for travelers heading into the end of the year. But you're right. Food prices, 4 of the 6 food categories went up a little bit here. But what we're really watching here, this Main Street, Wall Street disconnect, right? Wall Street loves that number was only 0.0, unchanged from September to October, that overall inflation is 3.3%, 3.2%, not 3.7% like last month. That's what Wall Street is really cheering. But Main Street, you're absolutely right. Main Street doesn't care about inflation rates. Main Street cares about inflation levels. And a lot of the stuff we buy every day is still more expensive than it was a couple of years ago. And frankly, core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy, that still came in at 4%. That's double what the Federal Reserve would like to see, Hallie.
So that brings us to bucket number 2, Christine. Quite a tee up there, right? Because like when we put that number 0.0 up on screen, we were talking months ago. Inflation was at like 7.8%. Yeah. Now it's at 3 something. Like there is a change. Like that line graph is going down. Yep. People don't feel it. You heard that woman tell Morgan she feels like the economy is a 3 out of 10, even with unemployment rates relatively low, even with the pace of inflation slowing down. What is it going to take for people to actually be like, okay, my money stretches a little further at the grocery store than it used to?
It might take a longer period of time of inflation not rising. It might take the Fed not raising interest rates anymore and people really getting used to these higher interest rates. And it might just take time heals all wounds, Hallie. It might just take a little time for people to get over that shock of inflation, the great national inflation nightmare of the past year or so. Things are getting better, but the polls are saying people don't believe it quite yet.
So real quick then, what is the Fed going to do here, right? Because there have been a lot of headlines. Well, this reduces pressure on the Fed to keep hiking interest rate. You think that's right?
You know, if you see a few more months like this, I think the Fed can stand pat. But Fed Chair Jay Powell, as you probably know this week or last week, said there have been a lot of head fakes on the inflation story. They got it wrong in the beginning. I think they'll still be cautious. I think they're not going to rule out more rate hikes if inflation, in fact, does rear its ugly head again.
Christine Romans, thank you very much for that breakdown. Appreciate it. Coming up, some new details tonight about those 40 workers trapped under a collapsed tunnel in India. What we're hearing now about their condition later on this hour. Plus, some new trouble tonight for TikTok, while one country says it'll ban it altogether. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Army is overturning the convictions of more than 100 black soldiers from the early 1900s, including 19 soldiers who got the death penalty at the time. They'd all been found guilty of crimes associated with the Houston riots, but now the board says they were wrongly treated because of their race and did not get fair trials. Number 2, the BBC says it's now investigating 5 complaints against comedian Russell Brand for quote-unquote inappropriate behavior. Remember, Brand has been accused of sexual assault by 4 women in a joint investigation by British media outlets back in September. The BBC also says it seems like no disciplinary action was taken against Brand while he worked there. 2 UK police forces are also investigating. Brand has denied all the allegations against him. Number 3, the CDC says at least 22 toddlers across 14 states got sick from lead linked to tainted pouches of cinnamon apple puree and applesauce. The reported symptoms included stuff like headaches and vomiting. Remember, Wanabana, Schnucks, and Weiss all recalled some of their fruit pouches because of potential lead contamination. The CDC says kids who may have eaten them should get tested for lead levels. Number 4, NFL star Patrick Mahomes is sharing the secret weapon to his success, not Travis Kelce, but his lucky pair of red underwear. Mahomes says he's worn the same pair for every game of his 6-year career. And when asked how often he cleans them, Mahomes says, if we're on a hot streak, I can't wash them. I just got to keep it rolling. NFL players, they're just like us. I'm just kidding. Number 5, an animated biopic of French singer Edith Piaf is in the works. Warner Music plans to use AI to recreate her voice and image nearly 60 years after her death. They say they're partnering with her estate to make it happen. If this happens, if it does get produced, it would be the first ever animated biopic of an artist using AI. Please, when we come back, try to shake out the image of Patrick Mahomes' underwear out of your head because we got some serious stuff to get to, right? We are watching what's going down in San Francisco, including President Biden just touching down ahead of his big meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who's expected to arrive there any minute now. You're looking at a live pic. We've got a preview of what this face-to-face could look like more than a year after the leaders last spoke. A new study released in literally the last couple of minutes finds that deaths linked to extreme heat around the world could quadruple, spiking something like 370% if some big action is not taken to limit the impact of global warming. This is according to the medical journal Lancet Health. It also finds that food insecurity could become the reality for nearly 530 million people, 500 million people. It's out at the same time as another study today finding nowhere is safe from the climate crisis in this country, in the United States. This new report shows America is warming 60% faster, roughly, than the rest of the world. And it highlights some of the worst places you can feel the impacts. The Phoenix area, for example, which has seen really bad drought and heat and these out-of-control fires. And remember this video, that crazy wildfire smoke blanketing New York City earlier this year? The report says we can expect more stuff like this on top of really hot temperatures. Bill Cairns is joining us now. Bill, I think the hard thing when we talk about some of these climate reports is it just feels like a drumbeat of terrible news, right? It is just like constant doom. We're screwed. The climate's screwed. Like, what can people take from this that is constructive? And do you think this money, based on the reporting and the expertise that you have in this field, that President Biden is putting into place here, is actually going to make a difference?
Anything helps, Hallie. I mean, we have to. If you just give you negative information just constantly, it just depresses people. They just block it out. They don't want to hear about it. So this comes out every 4 years, our government. This is only about the United States, the impacts here. This isn't the world reports that we get from the IPCC. So the biggest thing that we're doing, the U.S. is warming about 60% faster than the world. You know, Alaska, the higher north you are, the faster you're warming up. Alaska is increasingly warming about 4.2 degrees since 1970, which is almost like shocking. You got some. It's fast enough that you can actually notice it. So let me go to some of my maps to kind of show you what we are looking at here. So the temperature and carbon dioxide, these trends go together. They're going up. There's no arguments there. Everyone knows that. If you know, the people that don't believe it, they're just not believing the science. It's been proven. So the scenarios that are still possible, all the climate scientists I've talked to said, take out the very high, take out the very low. So far, the U.S. has warmed up since about when I was born in 1975, about 3 degrees. By the end of this, century, it could go as more as 5 to 10 degrees. It's all up to us and the people of the world how much fossil fuels we emit. So where you live by the next 60 years could warm another 7 degrees from where it is right now. And we know the warmer it's going to get, we're going to get more disasters, especially the billion-dollar disasters. Texas, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, California, those are all the ones that have been hit the hardest so far.
Bill Cairns, thank you for that breakdown. Really appreciate it. I know there's lots to watch there, lots to take from it. Appreciate it. We are taking you out west now, where the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, has landed in California just since we've been on the air here for this high-stakes meeting with President Biden. And if you're like, wait a second, Hallie, I thought you hated the phrase high stakes because it's a cliche. Well, in this instance, it actually is incredibly fitting. It is high stakes. It's a big deal. Or as Joe Biden might say, it is a BF deal, because right now tensions between these two countries are really high. Remember, these two haven't met since Bali last year, and since then we've seen a lot happen internationally. 2 wars, for example. That Chinese spy balloon flying over sensitive sites in this country. We've also seen a lot of questions over Taiwan's independence. With all of this, officials at the White House say there is no detail too small, according to sources, when it comes to this meeting. That means every part of Xi's visit is really tightly choreographed, according to people familiar with the planning. Super choreographed, from what President Xi is going to see outside his window during his car ride to what camera angle he gets recorded from. Overall, China seems to be looking for Xi's trip to California to be seen as what officials call a grand visit. Monica Alba is behind this reporting for us. She is joining us now from San Francisco. We know that any meeting between the president and anybody else is going to be choreographed. That is kind of the point of an advance team, right, of White House staff that sets these kinds of things up. But this feels different. This feels unusual, as Xi Jinping and President Biden are now in San Francisco, where you are as we speak. We just saw the Chinese leader's plane land in just the last couple of minutes. Talk us through it.
And Hallie, I can tell you that President Xi's motorcade just passed by our live location here, and you can hear in the background he has been greeted by some supporters. We understand there have even been some students from elsewhere in California who were bused here to San Francisco to greet him, to wave Chinese flags, and to really present him with what experts call a pleasant visual, so that those are some of the images that are beamed back home on state-run television in China. That is exactly what Chinese officials officials are hoping to get out of this visit, that even some say the theatrics, the optics of it are a little bit more important for them than the substance, given that China's economy is struggling post-COVID and given how much the Chinese leader wants to get out of this face-to-face with the president. When it comes to the U.S. side of things, there have been many requests that Chinese officials have made. They've tried to accommodate some of those. But for President Biden, this is high stakes, but the expectations are a little bit lower. And that is because they are looking to get some commitment on things where there can be common ground, like addressing fentanyl, for instance. But there's also this major concern about reestablishing military-to-military communications. That's something that broke down last year, that only got worse after the U.S. shot that Chinese spy balloon down after it went across the continental United States. And then we know there's been a ton of diplomatic work behind the scenes to get to this point here ahead of this summit tomorrow. But they're not even revealing the exact location of it because Chinese officials have expressed concern about potential protests, anti-China demonstrations that could be met there. And so that is why they're only going to reveal it once we get closer to it. And then you're also going to see President Xi tomorrow evening as part of a big top CEO dinner here in San Francisco, where he will deliver a major address. And that is really meant, we're told, to signal this priority that the Chinese have to try to bolster U.S. investment in China. So that is a big part of it. We don't expect the president to attend that dinner tomorrow evening. He'll have a separate event, but we do expect a high-level cabinet official to be in attendance. Hallie.
Monica Alba, I feel like we're going to get more details on this as the night develops. I know you'll be there watching all of it, Mom. We'll chat again tomorrow. Thank you. That brings us now to tonight's backstory, of course, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits in our bigger picture. And tonight it's all about this meeting between President Biden and President Xi, perhaps the biggest test of the president's long-held view that all politics, even foreign policy, is personal. Our Mike Memoli has been on the Joe Biden beat for more than a decade. He traveled with the then vice president back in 2011 all the way to China. He brings us this behind-the-scenes look at the history of their relationship and where it could go from here.
Joe Biden has long prided himself on the deep relationships he's developed at home and abroad over 5 decades in public life, arguing it has enabled him to get things done, even with potential opponents and adversaries. And when it comes to Xi Jinping, Biden has often, over and over, boasted that he knows him as well as any world leader.
I probably spent more time with Xi Jinping. More time with Xi Jinping. More time with him than any world leader has. I've spoken with him more than any other head of state.
Little was known about Xi in 2011 when then Vice President Biden flew to China for their first extensive one-on-one meetings.
We knew that he was slated to be the next leader of China, but we didn't know very much about him.
Kurt Campbell, one of Biden's top China advisors now, traveled with Biden then.
I think President Xi was quite an opaque individual. He was very careful in his discussions with the president, but still, in his questions and his comments, we got to know a little bit about him.
I also traveled with Biden over the 5-day visit, first for high-level meetings in Beijing.
We would like to work with your country.
And then more informal sessions outside the capital. Biden shot hoops alongside Xi at a school in a rural Sichuan province, and the two men toured an ancient irrigation system. But everyone on that trip knew that for all the touring and photo ops, it was the conversations at the private dinner afterwards that really set the table for the decade to come. Biden offered some initial thoughts the next day, expressing optimism about the future of the U.S.-China relationship.
A rising China will fuel economic growth and prosperity, and it will bring to the fore a new partner with whom we can meet global challenges together.
Speaking with reporters on Air Force 2 later, Biden offered early impressions of Xi, saying he is strong and he is pragmatic and genuinely wants a relationship. Biden would meet Xi again the next year when he visited Washington for a first meeting with President Obama. Biden and Xi also traveled together to California, focused on the economy. Those meetings, and others to come, were part of a careful choreography to manage the transition of power in Beijing. In conversations since Biden returned to the White House, both he and Xi often recall those initial interactions.
It's almost like competitive memory. Who can remember what we had for lunch, or I remember what we discussed, something that the other said could be used in some way to gain advantage.
From competitive memories to competitive geopolitics, the U.S.-China relationship since those early meetings has become increasingly strained. In the 2020 campaign, Biden took heat for seeming to downplay the threat posed by China.
China is going to eat our lunch
Come on, man.
Well, he is very naive about China. China just, during the Obama years in particular, just took advantage of our country so badly. A very, very big competition, China. And I've stopped it.
Biden's view, aides say, is that the U.S. is engaged in competition with China and Xi to shape the world in the 21st century. It's that tension with China that's been a key Biden argument in selling his administration's agenda on issues like infrastructure and advanced manufacturing.
It's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century that we face with the rest of the world, particularly China. I've told Xi Jinping it's never been a good bet to bet against the American people.
Wednesday's meeting will be just the second face-to-face encounter between Biden and Xi since Biden took office. It's the first direct discussion since tensions with China ramped up after Biden ordered a spy balloon downed over the U.S. And it comes as Xi has maintained close ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, raising concern about whether Xi may move on Taiwan like Putin moved on Ukraine. Campbell says this is where the long relationship pays off.
Look, the president puts a lot of stake in being able to sit down and work through issues, even with leaders that he has disagreements with. I think that we'll be able to call on that previous experience as we sit down together in San Francisco.
Mike Memoli is joining us now, author of the upcoming book about Joe Biden. I think I can say that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I hope so. I'm sorry. I think it's been announced, right?
It's been announced.
Okay, fine.
We're working on it.
My point is that you know this. You know this president, right? You understand his relationship with Xi Jinping, as we just laid out here. They're not going to be shooting hoops tomorrow in California. No. Like that's not a thing that's going to happen. Right? Exactly. Not part of those details we talked about. But it's one thing to have a relationship. It's another to turn that relationship into policy. How is President Biden going to do that?
Well, that's what this is all about, right? How does this relationship advantage the American people? And what's interesting in talking to Kurt Campbell and other advisors, there are less sort of deliverables, to use the term of art, that the White House is really looking for at this point.
Explain what a deliverable is to humans who don't cover the
They want economic benefits for the American people. They want a reduction of tariffs maybe that China has on the import of U.S. goods.
It's like a checklist of things they want to get out of any given meeting. And in this instance, there's economic benefits they hope to.
And what the U.S. really wants is predictability. We're heading into a presidential election year, and Kurt Campbell said this, stay out of our knitting was the term he used, not just in the U.S. election, but the Taiwanese election, because she is an autocrat. That's, I think, one of the most fascinating things looking back to Biden's early and initial impressions of Xi. I don't think he predicted that he was going to consolidate power in the way he has in China. Because remember, the reason for the meeting in 2011 was because China had term limits for its presidents, and they knew Xi was about to become president.
She got rid of
the term limits, right? And so he's meeting him now in that context and seeing how he's moved in this authoritarian way. It's part of what's sort of looming over this meeting.
Did you think 12 years ago, covering this Biden-Xi discussion then, that you would be sitting here having this conversation now? Not from your personal perspective, but in the point of Joe Biden now being the president.
One of the other questions I asked him on Air Force 2 was, remember what the context was. This is late 2011. Obama was thinking of dumping Biden from the ticket. He said, I haven't figured out how to get myself off the ticket. He made light of it at the time. So I didn't think I'd be covering Joe Biden still as president of the United States now, and I don't think thought he'd be dealing with Xi Jinping still as president of China right now.
It was so fascinating. Mike Memoli, we're so glad to have you walking us through all of that. Appreciate it. Ahead of a big day tomorrow. Thank you. We'll see you again, I'm sure. NBC News covers hundreds of other international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our international teams have done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of India, an update to a story we told you about 24 hours ago. Family members of about 40 workers still stuck in a collapsed tunnel are pushing for a faster rescue. These people have been trapped for more than 2 days now. Crews are digging through debris, trying to get to them. Officials say the workers are safe and healthy. They've been able to get them food and water and oxygen. Out of Nepal, the government there has decided to ban TikTok. Why? Well, they said the app was disrupting, in its words, social harmony. The country recently started requiring social media companies to set up liaison offices there and follow its laws. It's not clear if TikTok have been following those rules. And out of New Zealand, comedian John Oliver's campaign to get people to vote for the Puteki Teki to become the country's favorite bird is creating some trouble. Have you heard about this? There's this contest every year in New Zealand to name a bird of the year. People don't a couple thousand people vote. Well, John Oliver gets involved. You see him there in his bird costume. He decides to try to push for the Puteki Teki. They put up billboards all over the country. So many people apparently got involved that organizers delayed announcing a winner. They actually pushed it off. We'll see tomorrow if Oliver's hard work and bird outfits have paid off for this random contest in New Zealand that is important, of course, to New Zealanders. And we'll see how that goes. Coming up here on the show. We're going to take you back overseas now because there is a new weapon of choice in Israel after the Hamas attacks. Who's buying them may surprise you. That's next in tonight's original. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's Israel's military fighting in Gaza. And as that happens, more civilians are buying guns back at home in Israel. The government says tens of thousands of permits and licenses have been issued in just the last month. Here's our Jay Gray with more.
It's not that hard to spot a weapon on the streets of Tel Aviv or anywhere in Israel right now. Rifles strapped across the backs of reservists. But now, there's a new weapon of choice here. Israelis pulling the trigger on purchasing handguns. Many of the first-time buyers, women.
Hi, I have two young boys. The big one is 8, the little one is 4. They are waking up, screaming in the middle of the night. It breaks my heart, and as a mom, I have to do anything I can to keep them safe.
Safety is why Israel's controversial national security minister Ben-Gvir says he's pushing to arm as many civilians as possible. A leader of the far-right Jewish Power Party, he brandished a handgun last year in a confrontation with Palestinians, saying he acted in self-defense. 2 days after the horrific October 7th attacks, Gvir launched what he calls an emergency operation to distribute more guns.
It's something that, I saw how many kids were killed. I saw how easy it was. So I think that the weapon next to me is better just in case.
The procedure for getting a firearm license, which used to take months and included in-person interviews, now is done over the phone with a permit issued in less than a week.
So we have a giant influx of people coming from all parts of the country. All different gun ranges all over the place, all over the country are also completely swamped.
Since October 7th, the Israeli Ministry of National Security says more than 220,000 eligible civilians have applied for a gun license, compared to around 36,000 in the 9 months before the attacks. And it says in the last month, more than 26,000 conditional permits and more than 15,000 new licenses have been issued.
For the most part, it's really just self-defense. You want to defend your family, you want to defend your community, you want to defend your people.
Israelis targeting any sense of security they can find right now.
I want to bring in Jay Gray, who is live for us now in Tel Aviv. A lot of these Israelis say they're buying guns for self-defense. Can you talk through what else you're hearing on the ground there about why people are doing this?
Yeah, Hallie, a lot of people are concerned after seeing, they say, how easy those attacks were. But let's talk a little bit about the pushback as well. The Israeli government has requested 24,000 automatic weapons from the U.S., but is getting a bit of that pushback from members of Congress, some officials with the State Department, concerned about where those guns might end up. They could end up in the wrong hands, they fear. And according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, shootings have increased dramatically in Israel, and specifically in the volatile West Bank since October 7th, and then the easing of those gun regulations. And they say many of the victims, in fact, a vast majority, are Palestinians.
Jay Gray, thank you very much for that reporting, for bringing us that story here as our original tonight on the show. Jay, thank you. Still to come here on the show, a new study about the processed foods we eat and what they mean for our health. It's not all bad news. We'll explain in just a sec. So tonight, even more evidence that certain foods that a lot of us like to eat, soda, chips, beef jerky, could be raising the risk of getting really sick with potentially cancer, diabetes, heart disease. This is according to a new study backed by the WHO out today. It found that animal products like meat and dairy and sugary drinks were the biggest culprits of the eventual potential for deadly diseases. However, hold the freak out. It is not all bad news. The new research also shows that some breads and cereals, which are also pretty processed, can actually lower your risk for these serious conditions because they're higher in fiber. Dr. Natalie Azar is joining us now. So, Dr. Natalie, listen, not earth-shattering news that processed food is not the best for your health, right? You have seen some of these impacts in these patients. So what should we be thinking about with this study? What surprised you in this study? What did you not expect to hear?
Well, I definitely didn't expect to hear that some processed foods were good for us, because when you think, or maybe not so much good, well, actually, in the case of the breads and the cereals, they actually potentially showed a decline in risk of certain cancers, potentially because of that fiber. But I think if we don't want to conflate not being bad for you for also being good for you, but it certainly wasn't surprising, especially that animal products and the sugary, sweetened beverages, we have known for years that those are potentially bad for us. And what they defined, Hallie, was this concept of multimorbidity. That is 2 or more chronic diseases from this. So not just developing cancer or not just developing, diabetes or becoming obese, but it's having cancer plus one of those chronic conditions. And that is a major, major big deal. But I would have been surprised if it had shown the opposite, that eating these foods didn't have a negative impact on your health. That would have definitely been shocking.
You're right, and that key of multimorbidity is sort of the other piece of what's new here. It's not as though, if you take the converse perspective, though, it's not like we can only eat fruits and vegetables and expect to not have any kind of harmful diseases later in our life, right, too? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this.
Absolutely. And I think, just to kind of really to drive home the point to people that we cannot expect people to only ever buy plant-based whole foods and never have anything processed or packaged. You and I are both moms. We know that that is not realistic. And I do think it's reassuring to hear that certain plant-based alternatives were okay. Certain desserts and sweets were even in the kind of okay category, but especially, breads and cereals, which are really a staple, especially in the American diet, didn't seem to have too much of a negative impact on folks. And that is a message I think that most of us can hear and resonates very well for the physician in me and also for the mom in me, that we do our best. We can't be perfect.
Dr. Natalie Azar, that's, I think, a good message, right? Try to hit perfection. Don't stress out if you can't get there. Natalie Azar, thank you very much, Doc. Appreciate it. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.